Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Daniel and I'm the tutor here at the Digital Marketing Institute, and today we're going to run through assignment one and essentially go into some of the criteria that's needed for this assignment as well. I'm going to give you an overall overview of some of the support methods that we have as well as you engage in your assignment, and then we'll also have a Q&A at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to share them. I'll show you how to do that in a moment, and we can make our way through today's webinar. If I don't get to the questions as I'm going through the content, please don't worry, I will address them all at the end as well. We usually have about 10 minutes or so at the end to go through any questions you may have. So just as good practice, guys, on my side it says that my camera and my audio is coming through okay. So I would just like to confirm if you guys can hear and see me okay, and then we'll crack on with today's webinar. So if you use the question section available on your screen now, if someone wouldn't mind just saying that they can hear and see me okay, that'd be great. Yes, all good. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks Juan and thanks Matt for that. And guys, again, if you want to ask questions, that's how you do it. You just access the questions field on your screen, and you can populate the field with the question, and we'll get to them at the end of today's webinar. Okay, guys, so just to sum up again what's going to happen in today's webinar, we're going to run through the requirements for assignment one. Then we're going to also give some insights into some of the research that you're going to undertake and some of the components involved in actually selecting a company for the purposes of assignment one and assignment two. And then we're actually going to make a quick start on going through some of the sections that are needed regarding the assignment one, such as the executive summary, the research methodology, and the target audiences as well. And you can see on the screen here, these are the first three sections that are required for assignment one. I'm also going to conduct a webinar in the near future, and the webinar schedule is available through your learning platform, where I will cover section 4, 5, 6, and 7. And subsequently, the same process gets undertaken for assignment two as well. We've got it separated out just to give some more insights into the specific sections. All right, so let's get right into this, and let's dive in now to see what's needed and what is effectively assignment one. Okay, so assignment one is a 5,000 word digital marketing research assignment. Now this assignment needs to be conducted that you undertake research regarding the digital marketing technologies of your selected target audience and industry applicable to an organization or a company that you select. All right, so how this assignment works is you need to actually go into the real world. This isn't a company that you just decide to use. You need to correspond with a company. And so that means asking them, sorry, I've just lost my camera. I'm just going to turn it back on. Camera should be working again. Just bear with me, I'm just loading it up. Okay, great. So you need to contact a real world company. Now that can be a company that you're working for, or it could be a startup company that of someone you know, or it could also be a company that you're just quite a big organization that you maybe have a keen interest in that industry and you want to ask them, can you use their company or organization for the purposes of this assignment? But this is mandatory for assignment one and assignment two. Both assignments are based on selecting a real world operational company. Okay, and they need to have a small digital presence. So they can have a vast digital marketing presence and they're operating on many channels, or they can potentially just have a functional website, or at a very low level, possibly they're just using social media channels. All of them are acceptable, okay? And again, in terms of how big the company is, regarding staff or budgets or marketing resources, there is a vast field there, okay? So it can be a very small company and a startup who are operating on perhaps just social channels, all the way up to a full-blown organization who could be operating on nearly every digital marketing channel with a high-level budget available to them as well, all right? But the research you're going to undertake is going to gain insights into the selected industry and into the selected target audience of your chosen company. It's a 5,000 word assignment. We're going to run through the sections now a little bit later. We do have a tolerance there, as you can see on the screen, for 5,000 to 500 words. So we do recommend that you apply the recommended approximate word count that we've also given details on to each section. And it gives you a little bit of tolerance there if you steer yourself in that direction as the required instructions that we've given. Gives you a 500 word tolerance. But if you do go over that 500 word tolerance, unfortunately, you will get penalized. So my advice is to ensure that you compile your research assignment within 5,000 words. All right, so as I just mentioned there a little bit about how to actually select an organization that you need to use for the purposes of this assignment. It can be based on an existing company of your choice. So you could contact your employer, perhaps it's the company that you're working in at the moment, or someone that you know. As I gave insights a little bit there really is no mandatory requirement in terms of the size of the company. So it can be a very small company all the way up to a vast organization. If you're working in possibly a big company and they're going to allow you access, because of course you need to verify with the company for the purpose of this assignment that they're willing to work with you, because they will need to share information with you, and we're going to get to that in a moment. That's absolutely fine. And again, if it's a small startup company, or perhaps it's just a small company with maybe only a few people working in it, and they have kind of that middle ground area where maybe they've got a functioning website, they're online on social channels, and perhaps they're using email marketing as another channel, and they're in that middle ground. Again, that's fine. So there is no prerequisite. The only mandatory area needs to be that they need to have some digital marketing presence there. All right, so they need to be operating on at least one digital marketing channel. Choose an organization based on your interests. And I mean, this is just, I think, a good practice idea. If you're potentially doing this assignment for the purposes of maybe getting involved in digital marketing for the first time, or you are potentially going to move into another industry, why not try and pick an organization that you're interested in? It's a good way to step into that new category or that new industry. So it can just be a good method of progressing in your own future career path if needed. And you'll find it more interesting, you'll find the research more interesting as well. And you may already have some previous insight into that based on your interests. It might make the process a bit easier. You should choose an organization that you can use for assignment 1 and assignment 2. All right, so my advice is today we're going through assignment 1's kind of required information. And we have provided the assignment guidelines for assignment 1 and assignment 2 on your learning platform. Before you start contacting companies, my advice is to look at the assignment 2 guidelines as well. All right, just let you gauge the requirements that you might need to undertake going forward. And while you might say, I've read the assignment 1 handbook guidelines and I've picked my company, in assignment 2, you're going to need to formulate a digital marketing strategy based on available budgets, based on the channels that the company you select is currently using, or maybe not be using. So, and again, the available marketing resources as well. So have a look at that assignment 2 handbook before you select a company, and also, of course, not forgetting assignment 1's handbook. And then say to yourself, what is the best organization for me based on the interests, based on the requirements of the assignment, and also based on the information that they're willing to give you to complete the assignment. Okay, and specifically that means kind of access. It means access to any channels that they're operating on. You don't have to gain in-depth analysis into the likes of specific possibly wages that they're paying their staff, because we do have a budget breakdown in assignment 2, but nevertheless you will need to get some approximate figures from them, and you will need to get a estimated budget for the marketing strategy in assignment 2 as well. So these are just things to consider, and this is all stated in the assignment handbook. But if you're going to contact your company now and start organizing this whole process, it's just good practice to know exactly where you stand through all of this postgraduate course. You can also select any organization in any country and conduct research remotely as well. All right, so you don't have to tangibly go to these companies and meet people. Again, if you're working in the company, that's fine, or if you know them, that's fine. But you can actually contact this company via email, and once you gain correspondence with them and they give you compliance with sharing information, and also give you the go-ahead to use them for the purposes of this assignment, perfect. So you don't need to actually go to this organization. You can work remotely if needed. Okay, so how, now that we've kind of established what we need in terms of having that small digital marketing presence there with a company, and they will agree to let you insight into the operational channels that they have, that could be Google Analytics, that could be their email marketing platforms, that could just be insights into their social media channels and behaviors that's going on there, such as engagements, likes, followers, and their overall uploading of content perhaps on their social media channels, and then viewing the analytics to see what the users of those channels are, such as the demographics, and such as the interests of those users as well. Okay, so we've kind of just established there that we're going to need a small marketing presence, digital marketing presence of the company, and also they're going to need to allow you to have insight into their operational channels. We have also provided a company letter as well if you want to approach companies, and it states some of the aspects that will be needed for the purposes of this assignment, and that is available in the Learning Support Hub on your learning platform, on your MyDMI learning platform. So my advice is to use that when you're contacting organizations, and all of the data that will be taken for the purposes of this assignment is under non-disclosure agreements. So anything that's shared from the company will only be used for the purposes of this assignment, and nothing else in an external point of view as well, which is stated on the company letter. But let's get in now to kind of looking at proactively approaching how to contact a company. So my advice is to look for organizations online on social channels like LinkedIn, or even on job websites. All right. Doing this now, if you actually look for digital marketing positions on LinkedIn, and you'll kind of gauge possibly companies in your area, in your local area or local region, particularly with startups or smaller companies, if they're looking for someone in regarding digital marketing, and you approach them via email and state to them that you're conducting a postgraduate research assignment that needs to take into account a real-world operational company, by the end of it, they'll essentially get a free research audit and a free digital marketing strategy audit as well. So it's well within the interests of these companies to engage with you for the purposes of this, and they will get information back. Now that's up to you. You don't actually have to share your documentation at the end, but if a company is willing to let you use them, I think it's probably good practice to, you know, as a selling point essentially, to let them to work with you, to say this is what you're going to get at the end of this assignment as well. All right. Look in your local group, such as, you know, friends, family, classmates. Again, you can contact people on our community forum that we have set up, and specifically the classroom forum. Maybe you have a company, maybe you have a company already that you've selected, and you also know someone that's looking for assistance in digital marketing. Why not share that on the class forum and help someone out in your classroom? All right. To contact somebody in these companies, contact obviously someone regarding in the digital marketing channels, or sorry, in the digital marketing organization, or maybe even contact the HR departments. All right, and just give them the prerequisites of what's needed for this assignment, and explain to them that you're going to need access to some of the data on their channels, and also that you're going to not share the information obtained with anyone else outside the Digital Marketing Institute, and that is all provided in that cover letter which I've just listed here as well. All right, one final thing, we have in the Learning Support Hub on your learning platform, if you click into that and then click into preparation, you'll see an assignments tab. When clicking into that, you'll actually see a company form. This company form is used for us to kind of gauge where you're at in terms of confirming that you've actually got a company and what industry it operates in. It's a small form, it's a short form, and it should be completed 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks tops at the end of, or sorry, at the beginning of your course. So after your start date, which is obviously the first of, for many of you, it will be the first of this month. 6 to 8 weeks after that, you want to ensure that you've completed that form. You won't receive any feedback for this, and it's not actually mandatory, but it's just a way for us to gauge your progress and to ensure that you've got a company as well. All right. If you're still struggling to find a company, please do contact us and we'll try to assist you, give you maybe some more insights on how to go forward and do this. All right. Not forgetting, guys, charities and nonprofit organizations can also be very open to taking any kind of additional help on board as well. So that might be another area we're considering if you're really struggling to obtain a company. Now, what kind of information, as we said, will we need? And as I said, it's good practice to look at assignment 1 and assignment 2 before contacting your company. So I've listed out kind of some of the aspects that you'll need here. So one is, for assignment 1, an overview of the organization, such as, you know, how long are they operating, significant developments, locations, and an overview of their marketing activities. Then if we're to take into account social media as a channel that they might be operating on, you know, the Facebook insights, the Twitter analytics, likes, followers, overall engagement on those platforms. Website analytics, then traffic, audience profiles, and behaviors. Okay, now this can be obtained through Google Analytics. Perhaps the company has Google Analytics set up, maybe it's not set up fully, that it's fully functional. That could be an area to look at as you move through your assignment for assignment 2, when you're actually compiling a strategy to innovate channels. But nevertheless, if you can gain aspects into data that they've possibly compiled from their website analytics, brilliant. Okay, and then in assignment 2, as I mentioned earlier, digging a bit deeper into more strategic information that you're going to need to formulate that digital marketing strategy, such as marketing staff headcount, team structure, and available budgets for the purposes of your strategy. Then an overview of the digital marketing activities, digital preferences, digital performance, social media again, SEO, search engine optimization, placement in search engine results pages, possibly the keywords that they're using on that channel. And then if we look at digital display advertising, such as impressions, reach, cost, click-through rates, overall conversions, email open rates, click-throughs, unsubscribe rates. And then if possibly they're using mobile as a channel, the use of their app, or maybe even how their website is tailored for mobile consumption from a user point of view. All right, so you can see there's a slight kind of difference there in terms of what you're going to need. Assignment 1 really focuses on gaining those insights specific to research for the target audience and for the industry. And then assignment 2 is really drilling down on insights that are going to allow you to formulate a digital marketing strategy. All right, so we've kind of established now some of the kind of necessary requirements when one, contacting a company, and 2, seeking information from that company, and some of the assets that might make the process a bit easier in terms of using that company, letter that gives the information, such as their non-disclosure agreements and what kind of information you're going to need for your assignment. Now, if we go into the assignment itself, and we're going to approach this by looking at sections 1, 2, and 3 for this assignment. So let's begin on executive summary. Now, executive summary is 5% allocated to this section, all right, and there's an approximate 265 word count. It's in the opening section of your assignment. This is to be compiled. Okay, it's a summary of the entire document and all the key points and aspects and information within it. It's not a summary of your organization. Okay, now that should be submitted in a one-page additional version in your appendices. So you can have a brief one-page description of your company in your appendices, which obviously is attached to your assignment under your reference list, or you can also have it as a separate file as well. This one-page description of your company, if needed. I would recommend putting it in your appendices though, and then you can obviously cite it a bit appropriately throughout your document. But getting back to the executive summary, this is obviously a summarized version of the entire document, so you should be able to pick up just the executive summary and actually read it and say, okay, now I'm familiar with all the key points and key sections and findings of the entire assignment. I would advise that you actually complete all the other sections first and then go back and do your executive summary, because again, it's an efficient way of compiling all the information contained. And when you've completed everything else, even though it goes at the beginning of your assignment, it's actually the best practice to do this. So complete all the other sections first and then write up your executive summary containing a brief summary of all the key points of all the other sections. Okay. Now, if we move on to the research methodology section, this is actually 15% for this section, and it's approximately 790 words for this section as well. Okay. Now, the research methodology section is actually a description of how you will approach this paper and your research objectives, and it's about justifying the research that you're going to undertake in this section. That really is the key word. It's justification. Okay, so you're going to provide an overview of the primary and the secondary research methods used, and you're going to justify using them. There is primary research that's mandatory for this assignment, assignment 1. It's primary research. It has to be undertaken, and it can take the form of surveys, interviews, or focus groups. Okay, so you must complete at least one method of primary research. I'm going to go in on the next slide, a bit more information about some of the requirements for that. And you also must complete, obviously, secondary research as well. And in terms of secondary research, it can be anything from textbooks, it can be anything from online academic journals, it can be industry trend reports, Google Analytics, as we said, of your website, or the social media insights, and they're actually categorized as secondary research for the purposes of this assignment, all right? And then again, we could even look at email metrics. In this section, you're going to, as I said, we'll just run back a little bit to put some clarity on this. You're going to justify the objectives that you set out, your research objectives. So look at the sections that are needed for this assignment, such as when we move a bit further down, the evolution and impacts of digital relevant to the target audience, future trends that are going to impact on the industry, and also the digital technologies and their impact on local and global levels as well. Okay, and then I'm not forgetting, of course, researching into your target audience specifically to your company. So all these requirements are needed for this assignment, and these are going to formulate your research objectives. Okay, we've got some examples in the assignment handbook of some potential research objectives. Now they're specific to other industries, but they might provide a bit more clarity if you need. So set up your research objectives and then justify the research that you're going to undertake, okay, and the methods that you've selected. So why are you using a primary research method, such as maybe interviews and focus groups, or why are you using surveys? And you need to justify that, all right? It's the same with secondary research. Why are you selecting these methods, such as maybe the Google Analytics, or why are you selecting these industry trend reports? What kind of insights are they going to give you to allow you to gain insights to the objectives that you've set out? You can also, obviously with surveys and interviews, surveys take on a more quantitative research approach, and interviews will focus on a more qualitative research approach. So, you know, you can look at researching qualitative and quantitative methods and build on those insights and showcase that I've selected this because, you know, I've selected this quantitative method by referring to maybe some industry research techniques, or again, some quantitative research techniques that you can find maybe in textbooks, that you can find in even academic journals, or just some best practice researching reports as well you might find online. So it's about compiling the research and justifying how you formulated it to give you the best results for the objectives that you've set out. One thing I'd like to say on this as well is we do have in your course content, we do have a module specific to research techniques and research methodology with Kevin Griffin. And that, I believe, is module 7 in the communications and consumer stream, which is the first stream available to you in your course content. So I would highly advise checking that out in relation to this section as well. I would also advise, before you start this assignment, to, you know, be quite confident and to make your way through pretty much all of the modules in the consumer and communications stream, which is the first stream as well, before undertaking your assignment. Okay. If you're confident in digital marketing, perhaps you have a bit of a background in it and you want to, you know, begin your assignment straight away after securing a company, that's okay. But my advice is to run through the communications and consumer stream first, and then start writing up your assignment. And then, of course, making your way through the content as well as you then formulate your assignment throughout the additional streams. Okay, now, so as we said there, we've said we need to justify the research, and we've said that some of the methods that we're going to need to do in terms of primary and secondary. So you're going to need to do this research to identify and create target personas, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And then you're going to need to do it as well to identify technologies used technologies used by your personas and understand how they've evolved around the personas and how they've impacted them. And then looking at technologies and how they've impacted your industry on a local and global level. And then also looking at the future trends as well. I know I touched on this a bit earlier, but this is why you're doing all this research, and these are the elements of the objectives that you're seeking to gain insights to. So ask yourself, what kind of information do I need for the assignment? And then choose those research methods based on the objectives. So again, as an example, perhaps analytics and surveys for personas. And then also we're going to look at maybe more digital marketing trend reports for the industry requirement sections as well. Okay. Now let's get into some of the kind of specifics of the primary research that's needed. So you need to select at least one method of primary research for the purposes of this assignment. All right, and that again can undertake a survey, a interview, or a focus group. And you also need to conduct multiple methods of secondary research, such as Google Analytics, as I said, or social media insights, industry trend reports, or online digital marketing reports, and also, you know, digital marketing textbooks are also appropriate for the purposes of this assignment. So if we get into surveys, and a lot of students choose to actually conduct surveys as one of their methods of primary research. You can conduct all three methods if you want and gain more insights, but you need to conduct one at minimum. So if we're going to take surveys as our primary research method, we need to gain 50 responses from the distribution, so 50 completed surveys. And we want to perhaps gauge about 10 to 15 questions, all right? And keep your questions, obviously, most of your questions as closed questions. That way it will actually allow you to analyze the data that you obtain a little bit easier. An interview, you can interview one or three key people in the business that you're operating in, or or even an industry professional that might give you insights into your selected industry. Okay. And again, you can also conduct those interviews remotely as well. You don't need to be present. You can actually compile a list of questions and send it out online to somebody, and they might give you some detailed responses. But my advice would be to maybe ask some slightly more open questions in your interviews, because it's more qualitative research, and you want to gain very in-depth insights into the results. If you're conducting a focus group, 30 participants is needed. So quite self-explanatory on that one again, and it's going to be compiling questions and obtaining insights from up to 30 participants. Google Analytics and social media insights and reports, obviously secondary research methods there, and it's a great way to look at research. I've got a couple of links in this presentation that I'm going to showcase again a little bit later with some databases for academic journals, and also some insights into maybe case studies that you might need that might be beneficial toward you. Journal articles can be found on the likes of Google Scholar and Core, and I will provide those links as well in the next slide or the slide after that. So just bear with me and we'll get to them in a moment. And then again, consider using reports from reputable websites. All right, so there's no point in kind of just pulling information from something that you can't really verify as a verifiable and reputable website. So you need to be pulling information. You can pull information from reputable news websites such as BBC News, Sky News. They've got great technology sections in their websites, and if you can pull information from any of those reviews or news reports, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that the website that you're gaining information from is actually a reputable and verifiable website. You can reference content on our digital marketing on your membership platform, which is available obviously through your Learning Support Hub. So the Digital Marketing Institute's membership platform houses a lot of articles. We've got over 300 assets on there now, and a lot of them are actually industry articles. So you can go in there and you can also cite that information and put it in your assignment, and that's fine. Okay, so now we're going to move on to that target audience section that I was describing a little bit earlier. So this is section 3, and this section equates for 10% of the overall grade and approximately 525 words. Okay, now this is where you're going to use your primary and secondary research data to draw up 3 or 4 personas of your main target audience. So let's assume we're only going to draw up 3 target personas. We're going to take the information we've obtained potentially from our Google Analytics and from our social media accounts, specific to the company that we're using for the purposes of the assignment. And then we're also going to look at our primary research. And let's assume we've conducted focus group. Let's run focus group. Let's assume that we've conducted a focus group, and so we're going to formulate it with the Google Analytics, social media, as I said, insights, and then obviously as a focus group as well. So it's a mixture of primary and secondary research to compile these. We have an example again available in the assignment handbook, and it showcases how you can formulate a target persona. So I would highly recommend looking at that and considering putting in the demographics of your target persona, the motivations of your target persona, and then also getting more in depth into the digital marketing channels and the digital marketing behaviors that so the digital marketing channels that they're operating on and the digital marketing behaviors that they're actually doing while they're on those online channels. Okay, the example in the handbook is actually a business to consumer target persona, which is obviously the example has looking again at demographics, as I said, such as age, gender, socioeconomic group, perhaps the geographic location, and then the likening digital marketing preferences of the channels and how they're using those digital technologies as well. If you're using a B2B company, that's fine as well, and you might want to formulate maybe your business persona a little bit differently. So if you find a good business persona online that you want to use and adopt, maybe in an academic journal, maybe it's even in a digital marketing textbook, cite where you've obtained the layout for that or the fields that you're going to include into it. It's absolutely fine. And you may look at some things like the industry sector, the size of the company, the geographic location as well, and the likely digital marketing preferences of the decision maker. And I always say to people, when you're looking at the decision making of a B2B consumer, the DMU or decision making unit is actually possibly worth including in this section as well. So it's just a good area to research the digital decision making unit. It's a way of formulating who's actually responsible for the overall decisions of purchase. It looks at maybe who's the end user of the product or service they're going to buy and who's actually got the overall decision to make within purchasing of it as well. You can have a mix as well of B2C or B2B. And for the purposes of this assignment, if you want to just select maybe one product or service that your company is selling. So let's assume it's a car company, just to keep this kind of simple. Let's assume that it's a car company and you have multiple different vehicles, and you want to just focus on actually selling one particular vehicle model. You can do that for the purposes of this assignment, but you need to formulate 3 target personas based on that specific product. Okay, but you can drill down specific to one product or service for the purposes of this assignment. Once you have created your personas, as I said, you need to verify the data within them with citations. So that will mean that you need to obviously create an overview to each persona and state how it was formulated, how you gain the information and the insights specific to that persona. And then when you have your persona laid out, and you have the demographics here, and the demographics, the online channels, the motivations, and then you have obviously, so let's just assume one demographic is location, and it's Republic of Ireland. I want to be able to see beside that Republic of Ireland in brackets an internal citation in the persona that has possibly Google Analytics 2019. Okay, or Google Analytics Google Analytics September 2019 data. So Fig 1, appendices B. Then I can go down into your appendices and say, okay, and you have a screenshot of the Google Analytics specific to the demographics and the location. And then you can say, that's where they got that information from, and that's how they're building these target personas. Okay, so I know it's kind of a simple example, and it requires you to have access to Google Analytics, but it's just a way of gauging how you can actually build your personas and then verify how you're building them based on primary or secondary research. And you can have, obviously this is formulating information from primary and secondary. So in some cases you might have 2 citations beside information, and it's allowed you to formulate it. Okay. So where can you find that information? It's actually a nice segue in here as I gave that example. Where can you find the kind of information? And I've just put obviously some of the demographics and some of the fields that are needed for formulating target personas. And then I've given some of the areas that you might want to investigate to achieve them. So if we look at gender, for example, possibly that's one area you're interested in looking at with your target personas. Social media insights, again, the Google Analytics, or even primary research. I mean, these are questions that you do need to ask when you're gauging primary research for target personas, such as what age are you, what location are they based in, and then again, what social channels are they operating on, these kind of questions. So you'll see here age, obviously again, social media insights, location, social media, primary research. And then if we're looking maybe at the likes of income, it's the same thing, but we might be looking at digital marketing reports or digital marketing trend reports. If it's region based, you might even be looking at the overall salaries in those specific areas. And then if we look down again, I know you can kind of look at this in your own time, and I know it looks a little bit repetitive, but it's just a good way of gauging maybe, where can I find this information? We've just tried to compile it to help you guys out. So if we look then at maybe technologies, we can see again, it's primary research. So these are ways of evaluating this with the mix of secondary and primary. And then if we were to take the market size, we might be looking at online reports or stats on audience groups, for example. So here, a lot of methods of secondary research, and again, methods to be undertaken in primary, 3 methods that you can undertake as well. And it's about finding which ones are going to allow you to gain this information. Now, as we mentioned earlier as well, if you're perhaps a previous alumni of a university, you may still have access to their academic databases. So I would suggest having a look at that and checking out what availability you have. If you don't worry. Some of the resources that you can use, there is free resources available to you. So let's just run through this. Google Scholar is always a good first port of call, and it houses obviously a vast array of other databases, like a meta search, where you can then go in and access other databases. Some of them are going to be, so if you click on an article that actually is going to lend itself well to the assignment, a lot of the time you'll only be able to look at the executive summary. And then when you go in to click on it, it might ask you for a payment. Under no circumstances are you required to make any additional payments for this assignment or assignment 2. Okay, I just want to state that. So you do not have to make any purchases of any additional software or access to any academic content, or subsequently any content that you feel will be beneficial. You don't need to. But Google Scholar does house also some information, or sorry, some documentation that is free, but you just please do not access anything and then put in any kind of payment. It's not necessary. Academic databases such as Core and Journ and Douage are also free academic databases, so you can go in and sign in there. Again, if any of them do ask you for payment, do not set up any kind of payment. But the likes of Core is absolutely free. It's a free academic open source database. It should be fine. Case studies then, we were moving a bit further on, and you'll see that the section which is the digital technologies and their impact on industry on a local and global level will actually require you to look at case studies going forward, okay, for that section. So if your case studies of the channels that you're selecting are social channels such as Facebook or LinkedIn, by clicking on these links, this will actually allow you to analyze case studies that were used for Facebook and LinkedIn. And now these are set up from Facebook and LinkedIn, but you can select various industries and various techniques that they used as well. So it's just some handy tools I thought of for inclusion here that might help you if you're looking to gain insights into some case studies specific to those social channels. And not forgetting industry trend reports as well, and our membership platform. I mean, our membership platform has, for example, there's actually, I'll go through this again in the next webinar, and I'll put up a link for it because I know it's section 6, it's very far down. But we do have, just as an example, an informative research article, white paper, done by our Global Industry Advisory Council that looks at actually where marketing is going in 2020 and beyond. And that can be quite beneficial to perhaps your future trend section if you want to reference that. And there's a lot more resources on our membership platform that you can use as well. But again, not forgetting to use verifiable websites such as any kind of technology, digital marketing technology website, or a thought leader who's a blogger, a thought leader vlogger who is well known in the industry and verifiable. That's absolutely fine. And using those academic journals, databases, and also even using textbooks if you want, or online case studies. Okay, guys. So now I've kind of covered the first 3 sections there. And I think it's probably a good place now to kind of just step into maybe an overall Q&A for this particular webinar. So I'm going to actually just scroll down now and have a look and see if there's any questions. Okay, and I don't actually have any questions at the moment. So I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds if anybody wants to write anything in. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to showcase some of the resources that you can use going forward. So just bear with me here. I'm just going to look at the resources available to you. So moving forward, as I said, assignment guidelines, first port of call. When you're doing your assignment, look at assignment 1 and look at assignment 2 guidelines before you make contact with any company. All right. And as you're actually compiling your document for assignment 1, I always have the assignment guidelines beside me just to make sure that you're always on the right track within each specific section. The research resources that I kind of share with you in this webinar and given some insights to, we also have some research resources available through your learning platform, and they can be found in the Learning Support Hub in preparation or assignment supporting documents. And you'll see some insights into the likes of pestle analysis and some also additional research tools as well. Academic writing guidelines, we've provided academic writing guidelines on our, again, through your Learning Support Hub. And these are a good indication and insight into Harvard referencing, which is required for the purposes of this assignment. And then not forgetting to complete all the modules in the communications and consumer stream before starting the assignment. Not forgetting research methodology with Kevin Griffin as well, which will give some insights into section 2. Not forgetting that you can also use the community. We've recently updated our forum community at the Digital Marketing Institute, And you'll see when you click into the community section available at the top of your module overview page screen. So you'll see membership, you'll see support, and you'll also see community in the middle. Clicking on community, you'll see form categories, and you'll have classroom form, general. So if you want to discuss anything based around your assignments or based around the content in the postgraduate course, click into your classroom, raise a query if you want. I'm on there often. I'm on there as much as I can be to write back. But alternatively, if you want to ask classmates just a question, or even just build your network, or just gain some insights, or maybe even share your surveys for the purposes of your primary research on the form, that's absolutely fine as well. And then, of course, if you want to contact us, you can use the support form, which again is available through the learning platform. Or you can contact us by email on assignmentqueries@digitalmarketinginstitute.zendesk.com. And one thing I would like to say as well is the support section of your learning platform, we've got a knowledge base there which houses a lot of informative, concise insights into possibly a question that you might have. So you can also check the knowledge base if you don't want to contact us directly or post on the forum. And it might provide a quick and efficient method of you gaining the insight you need there. And there's a search bar in the knowledge base, so or some of the most frequently asked questions. So, okay, guys, I'm just going to check the question base again to see. I think I've got one question actually here now. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, yes, I've got a couple of questions that have come in. Okay, so you mentioned that that any company size is acceptable, but in my experience, is it preferable or easier to work with a startup or a big company? It's a great question. There's pros and cons to both, so just bear with me. If it's a startup, they're probably not going to have many digital channels in operation. They're probably only going to have social channels and a functioning website. They mightn't even have both of them, okay? But we need to have at least one. The good news is about a startup is that they're usually open to assistance from an outside party, okay? And they'll probably need help in establishing how to set up the channels. So they're probably going to give you access to those channels quite easily, all right? And sometimes they're a bit more easy to approach, be a bit more fluid as well, and they might be open to giving you, not only giving you the information, but they might be more accessible on a long-term basis if you need any additional support going through the assignment. Perhaps you need to gain more insights into channels or gain more insights into any services or products that they sell. So startup companies that are small, usually easier to get in touch with, possibly even easier to work with. The catch with this is that they mightn't have as much data available on their existing channels, and they might only have a limited amount of channels in operation as well. On the other side of the coin, with a big company, they'll probably have a much more vast distribution on channels, such as they'll probably have social media, they'll probably have a functioning website, they'll probably have a high level of content marketing, they'll probably have possibly a very sophisticated email marketing structure set up. They might be evident on aggregator websites. They might also be using affiliate marketing websites, okay? So a lot more channels that you might want to consider there, and they might have a lot more data applied to those channels, which could help develop your target personas and help develop your digital technologies in terms of the evolution and impact section as well when you're looking at your target audience. The other side of that is that sometimes they might want to give you the data because they might be more concerned about it, particularly with the likes of GDPR, and they might be more reserved around that kind of element. They might also be harder to get in contact with in the first place. Having said that, they'll probably have a bigger available budget for assignment 2 that might allow you to be more creative, more realistic with a potential strategy. If you're using a startup company and they don't have much, they have budgetary constraints for assignment 2, you're going to have to be a lot more creative in terms of what kind of channels you're going to select and what kind of distribution you're going to be able to use on those channels in terms of content, with the resources available from a startup company if the budget's small. They might have a big budget if they're a startup and they're just getting going, but if they have a small budget as well, you'll have to be quite creative with your selected channels. And that could be just innovating their social media presence. It could be maybe really drilling down on organically setting up their website properly so that they're not using paid search methods on a regular basis. It's a longer method, But again, if it's a startup with not a high budget, it's a much more efficient, cheaper method, long term as well. And finally, the likes of email marketing platforms such as MailChimp allow distribution of email marketing flows for a very high, actually, amount of audience members, so or respondents. So there is options there if the budget's low, and that's kind of the pros and cons. So there is no right or wrong answer really there. It's just about finding out what the company has available to them in terms of data, and also the budget, and then defining the strategy going forward into assignment 2. In my experience, which one is preferable? Honestly, I think it's probably, and this kind of sounds like a middle ground answer, but a startup that's been operating maybe, for 2 years, that might have a couple of channels in place, maybe 3 channels operational, and they've got just that nice bit of data where you can develop your target personas, but they still have, it's not completely full functioning, and there might be other channels you identify as being necessary to use from your research. It's nice to have a company that's got the data there and they're still in that kind of implementation process. So that would be my kind of go-to if I could find one, maybe a startup that's operating for about 2 years. Alternatively, a big company. A very weak startup that might not have much data at all, you're going to really have to rely on secondary resources and really drill down on that small marketing presence that they do have as well. So that would be the one that I'd least be interested in. And the one that I'd really favor would be a startup that's been operational for maybe 2 years with the data available and a nice budget as well. Okay, the next question I have here is, are we able to do catch-ups with myself or another tutor on the progress of the assignments, mainly to be able to sense check the direction we are taking and get feedback? Again, it's a good question. You can ask it, and I maybe I've run through this already, but you can ask questions on the forum to gauge kind of, is this a right or wrong idea? The assignment handbook is quite informative. Also, we're going to have webinars throughout your journey. So I'm going to roll over specific webinars to selected sections, and we can engage in this Q&A as well and drill down. If you have a concern about a specific area that you really need to gain insights, drop me an email and any of the support team will be sure to get back to you as quickly as possible. But the structure of how to ensure that you're kind of familiar and making your way through this is, it is an online learning platform. So, it's required for you to get in and watch the content as your own time availability stands. But please do ensure to join me on these webinars, and I'll make our way through the sections as well. And we can kind of run through, sense check that you're doing it correctly, ask a Q&A at the end, and also you can email us directly as well if you'd just like to clarify something. We can't review though any draft content of your assignments, just to make that clear, because that would conflict with grading procedures. But we can give insights. I know that might sound a bit convoluted, but we can't actually, specifically say this needs to be changed, but we can give advice on perhaps to ensure that you are selecting the right methods correctly or engaging in the right diction correctly, for example, and setting up those sections. Okay, now I have one more question here. Would I say the real estate industry would be acceptable regarding research? Would articles from major players in the industry be acceptable sources of information? Yes, absolutely. I mean, the real estate industry is fine. And regarding research, again, if you're looking at academic journals, if you're looking at articles from major players in that industry that are verifiable and reputable, that's absolutely fine. Just be sure to source the information in your reference lists at the end of your assignment. I will touch on referencing in the next webinar, guys, which will be webinar for this. It would be webinar assignment 1 part 2. So just ensure to have that reference list with the list of the author, the company, the date that it was created, and also have the web link as well and when it was last accessed. And then if you were citing that particular research in your assignment, to have the corresponding author or company and the year beside whatever research that you've compiled as well. Okay, and again, Harvard referencing guidelines are available in the Learning Support Hub if you're struggling with that. I have another question here, and it's, hi Daniel, for qualitative in-depth surveys, can one conduct in-depth interviews with senior executives within the company itself, or do surveys interviews need to be among the customer base? You need to conduct, as I said, at least one method of primary research. So an in-depth interview with some senior executives in the company is okay, that's fine. Or do surveys interviews need to be amongst the customer base? No, they don't. They don't need to be specifically within the customer base. It's about justifying what method suits your research, okay? So if we were to say to ourselves, perhaps we had a very niche product, that if we were to send out our surveys on a kind of macro level to a general public, and they weren't really familiar with the service or products, that because it was a very specialized one, that might not be the best way to gain insights into online channels and behaviors. But if we were to look at conducting an interview with someone who's quite highly established in the company itself or even in the industry, we might be able to gain much more definable and verifiable and reputable insights regarding target audience. Okay, so it's just about asking questions that are formulated to get target audience answers out of the person you're conducting an interview with, and also getting industry insights as well. I can see this webinar is being recorded. Will it be made available to us moving forward? Yes, 100%. All the webinars that I'm conducting, and there's previous ones that I've actually conducted for the last month's cohorts and so on and so forth. I recommend, though, not going too far, looking at ones that are previously being done. Focus on this one, focus on those sections, and kind of move along with us. But if you want to gain some more insights, if perhaps your time availability is a bit limited and you can't make the next webinar, and you want to already kind of get involved with looking at it, you can. This webinar will be uploaded hopefully by the end of the day. And it will be made available, and I'll also put the slides up beside it, so you can click on those links that are embedded into the slides, and hopefully I'll get that up by the end of today. If not, it will be available tomorrow. But it's actually available on the webinar schedule, which is through your Learning Support Hub in your learning platform. And so if you click on Learning Support Hub and then go into assignment supporting documents, scroll down, you'll see webinar schedule, and I have a list of all the up and coming webinars on there. And then if you scroll down, you'll actually see past webinars, and that's where I'll have this webinar set up with the accompanying slides. Okay, one other area on that, you can actually also get to the webinar schedule through the knowledge base as well. So if you just write in webinar in the search on knowledge base, I think 3 resources come up, it's one of those 3, and click in there, and the link will be available, and you can go in there and then register for an up and coming webinar, or look at the past webinars and the additional slides as well. Do you record the next webinars in case we can't attend? Yes, we do, and as I just said, they'll be available on that schedule. But you can also register for the webinar, and then it will automatically populate that you'll gain access to it as well, and the recording. But they're all available on that webinar schedule. Okay, one more question regarding surveys. Should we be conducting surveys on staff members, e.g. the sales force, or end consumer buyers, or perhaps both? It's a good question. I mean, I would be looking at kind of end consumers, and particularly, guys, if you can gain access to perhaps a customer list from your company, great, because it's really going to be specific. They'll be familiar with the products and services. It's based on a consumer retention model, probably, that they've kept their CRM, customer relationship marketing. So if you can get a customer list of people who have already purchased from that company or service, and then distribute out your surveys to them with consent of the company, of course, that's a really good method of obtaining information. But you can also conduct interviews with perhaps staff members, high-end staff members that you're going to gain the insights to. It's about finding someone that you know is going to give you insights. Or you can also send out your surveys to staff members if they were familiar with the product or service. Yes, that's absolutely fine. And Salesforce might have some great insights into the target audience or target personas. So yes, of course, you could interview them. Okay, guys, that's actually all the questions for today. As I said, anything else, the resources are available, whether it's just looking for yourself on the knowledge base to gain some insights, or using the forum, talk to other students or myself, using the course content. Maybe, if you're just struggling with some real kind of digital marketing aspects, the course content is so vast, it really does cover everything. And also not forgetting that you can contact us via email on assignmentqueries@digitalmarketinginstitute.zendesk.com. Okay, guys, so I hope this welcome webinar was informative. I hope it's kind of given you some insights into how to approach the assignment, moving forward with the online content, and also not forgetting the deadline of the first assignment is 16 weeks after your start date as well. Okay, so best of luck, guys, as you make your way through. Hope to see you in the next webinar where we cover the next section of assignment 1, and have a great day.